Where did this activism drive come from? I mean, in reading your book, which is great, your kind of your upbringing, in Redding, California, doesn't really, it wouldn't seem to lead itself naturally to being an activist.
Yeah, it's interesting. It doesn't really, but I think, during the process of writing the book and looking back on it and trying to, unpack how I ended up here and why I am the way that I am, from such a young age, my parents, um, my mom specifically, made it very clear to my twin sister Rachel and I that just because you're popular or you're good at sports or whatever, like that doesn't really mean anything. Like you need to be a good person. There's something more than, just being good at sports or being popular or being that kid in school. Why don't you use that for something good? And actually it's your responsibility to do that. So I think those sort of early seeds, albeit without the language or the word activist or any of that, we didn't really think about it like that or talk about it like that. I think those seeds were planted early. And then just, growing up, being able to mature on the women's national team around, 24, 25 other elite women, coming out as gay, understanding and trying to understand the world better. And I guess just sort of getting some real life lessons in, pay equity, discrimination, gender equality. It's like even for, LGBTQ plus people, like we've been able to marry each other for 5 years in this country. We're going on 6 years. Like that's nothing. We still have a long way to go. And so I think the more I learn, the more I see and understand it's really all connected. All of these injustices or, inequities and discriminations are sort of all connected. And so how do we leverage, the individual fights that we're all fighting for the sort of greater good of all of us?
Well, to the extent they're connected, I mean, it really does seem like your journey has kind of been, a series of steps. I mean, maybe we can go through each one really quickly, but you first kind of put your foot out literally with the with pay equity before moving to LGBTQ plus, and then BLM. So maybe you could talk about your journey a little.
Yeah, I think it's just that, getting on the women's national team pretty early, being really excited and thinking that like my paycheck was really big and that was the first job that I had. And then, not that it wasn't big, but realizing it probably should be a lot bigger than it actually was, especially considering the historic success of the team, but also just the success of the team since I've been on it, coming out as gay, starting to understand more clearly policy and legislature and why marriage wasn't legal and how that all came about. And then obviously, the history of our country, which we really aren't taught. We purposely aren't taught in our schools. We're sort of taught that, slavery was kind of this like thing and we're all over it. But obviously the legacy and the horrors of that are just deeply entrenched in our society in so many ways. And so I think it really like the idea of intersectionality and how all things are connected, really just kind of stuck with me. And so I feel like when I'm talking about one thing can very easily go into the other. This is like a system, of white supremacy that really kind of benefits just like one kind of person. And that one kind of person is certainly not me. It's certainly not women or people of color, Black people, indigenous folks. So I think for me, it's sort of the more I learn, the more I get into it, the more I realize it's all connected.